This is Vermont Edition. I'm Michaela Lafrac. The Long Trail is the oldest long-distance trail in the country. Hikers come from all over to tackle its terrain. It's 273 miles that wind through the Green Mountain National Forest, and it is not for the faint of heart or those of us with literal weak knees. There are 66,000 feet of vertical gain to complete along the way. Our guests today both completed the Long Trail this summer a little bit faster than the average person. Tori Constantine is a nurse at the University of Vermont Medical Center, and she broke the Long Trail record for fastest unsupported hike for a female hiker. She did it in 5 days, 19 hours, and 29 minutes. She lives in Waterbury, and she's here in the Vermont Edition studio with me today. Tori, welcome.
Thank you.
And congratulations. We're also joined by another record breaker from Colorado. Tara Dower broke the Long Trail record for fastest supported hike ever, regardless of gender. She did it in 3 days, 18 hours, and 29 minutes. She's a professional ultramarathon trail athlete, and she is also the record holder for fastest supported hike on the full Appalachian Trail. Tara, welcome, and congrats to you as well.
Hi, and hey, Chewy. How's it going?
All right, let's start actually with trail names. Chewy, Tori, tell us about how you got yours.
I got my trail name on the Appalachian Trail in 2021. I got it from my friend Slingshot, who had a bunch of multivitamins and gave me one, thought it was chewable, and I bit into it, and it tasted horrible, so...
It lives on. And Tara, what about you? What's yours?
Yeah, my trail name is Candy Mama, and I got it during my thru hike on the Appalachian Trail in 2019, and I just ate a lot of candy, and I kind of mommed everyone, which is sort of annoying, but that was my trail name.
Oh my God, I love that trail name. That really speaks to me. How do you get a trail name? You can't like pick it yourself, right, Tori?
I think usually it's given to you. Like a lot of times it's given to you. Some people choose their trail names. There's lots of different ways to get a trail name. So.
Well, if you have hiked the Long Trail or the Appalachian Trail, want to share your trail name with us, or just tell us about your favorite part of the experience, give us a call at 800-639-2211. You could also send us an email to vermontedition@vermontpublic.org. That's what Nellie in Bolton Valley did. She wrote in with a story from her son, a UVM grad who hiked the Long Trail. And she writes, one of my favorite stories of his adventure was when he met a fellow hiker who also had a dog with her. She had been assured that the dog would handle the hike no problem, but when my son met them, they were confronted by a tall ladder and not sure how to get the dog to the next level. My son ended up hoisting the dog up the ladder and acquired his Long Trail moniker, Dog Tosser, which I also love. Tara, you did this so fast. 3 days, 18 hours, 29 minutes. How? I don't even know how, and also why? What are the most common questions you get when you tell somebody that you've been able to do this?
Oh, common questions. Yeah, the most common one is, like, when did you want to quit? It's not if you wanted to quit, but like, when did you want to quit? And
Because
tell
they
us
know
about that.
you wanted to at some point.
Yeah, and that's, I actually never wanted to quit. I really enjoy this stuff, and it's like
Yeah.
the like pain and suffering is enjoyment for me. But yeah, that kind of speaks to like, I guess, the difficulty of the attempt. So yeah, that's pretty much that's the most common question I get.
Did you sleep?
Yeah, I slept just under 3 hours, split up between 3 stops.
Okay. Is it hard to fall asleep when you have all that adrenaline and you're planning
Oh,
for the next day, or did you just pass out?
yeah, after Camel's Hump, so I was going southbound. So after Camel's Hump, I tried to sleep in the middle of the day and like it was impossible. And so we tried after that and it was like nighttime and I had gone many miles at that point. And yeah, at that point I was able to fall asleep and then like tried 2 other times and it was easy to fall asleep at that point.
And Tori, what was rest like for you?
I got a little more than 3 hours of sleep. I think cumulatively probably got about 6 hours the whole time. I didn't quite add it up, but
Wait, 6 hours over 5 days?
mhm.
What?
That's wild.
That is wild.
I was aiming for about 2 hours a night. I think I probably got closer to 1.5, and then on the last night I did not sleep. I just took a nap and pushed through.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so for both of you, I'm wondering if you could like bring me to the mental space of waking up after what we could only call like a cat nap and preparing to hit the trail again. I would cry. But I mean, it sounds like you're getting a lot of like endorphins, and you've trained for this for a really long time. Tori, what did that moment feel like when you're like, I'm all right, I'm back at it?
I'd been training since about January for this attempt, and it was I. But the night before I started, I could not sleep at all.
Mm-hmm.
This is like the first speed attempt of any type that I've done. So I had a lot of adrenaline. I think that helped me stay really awake the first couple of days, but then the sleep deprivation definitely caught up to me on day 3.
Yeah. Did you ever start hallucinating like really comfy beds or something ahead of you on the trail?
No comfy beds for me. It was like a life-size pinata. I had a hallucination in the bread loaves of a life-size pinata. And I also started seeing messages in the sticks that I thought were like written by my friends and stuff. And that was a little scary on the last night.
Oh my gosh. Tara, any hallucinations for you?
Oh yeah, Chewy was actually there for one of them. Were you there for the baby clown, Chewy?
Was I there for the baby clown? I don't know. I
I
heard
don't.
about the baby clown for sure.
Oh
Tell us
yeah,
about it.
yeah. It was the second to last section. So I think at that point I'd had like 20 miles left in the trail, so I was like severely sleep deprived. But yeah, I saw a baby clown, a 15-foot tall baby clown in the distance. I've seen like,
Horrified.
yeah, I've seen a lot of stuff, but like that one was like wild, and like Tori can probably contest, but like you can like it's like it's just like a feature, like a tree, or it's like it's not a baby clown. Like that, but it's still like, what am I seeing? I also saw like a melting person in the last like 14 miles, and yeah, I mean it's not real, but it's still like, what am I seeing right now? Why am I seeing this?
If you're just joining us, we are not discussing a bad trip at Burning Man. We're talking with two incredible athletes who set speed records on the long trail this summer. And I wanted to take some calls. We have some folks calling in with their own experiences on the long trail that hopefully don't involve baby clowns. Jeffrey is in Heartland. Jeffrey, go ahead.
Hi. Yeah, in the 1970s, I was in my 20s. I hiked the long trail in 2 segments. I was young, I was strong, and I was broke. And then about 10 years ago, I wanted to hike it again. I wasn't young, I wasn't strong, and I wasn't broke. But the technology had changed dramatically. So hiking, I probably had 15 fewer pounds on my back 10 years ago.
Wow.
And the most profound part of it was how life-affirming it was, life-altering, and just being immersed in the forest in the gorgeous state of Vermont was just really deeply profound both times.
Wow. Jeffrey, thank you so much for calling in. And I'm glad you brought up how the technology has changed and changes what you bring with you on the trail. Tori, you were doing this unsupported. What did you bring with you?
I brought a pack. I had, well, you could call it 5 days worth of food. It definitely wasn't enough food.
Oh no.
And well, it was as much food as I intended to bring, but
Okay.
could have definitely been consuming more. And then I had a sleeping bag and a tarp that I could put down on the ground. And that was about it. I had a couple of extra layers in case it got really cold at night, but I tried to pack pretty light, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you have anything to shelter you? Did you need any shelter from rain or other elements?
I got very lucky this summer and was able to find a 5-day window that had no rain
Great.
in
Well,
the
we haven't had
forecast.
much rain,
Yes.
so yeah.
So, yeah, I lucked out with the weather window. I did not bring a shelter. If it rained, my backup plan was to use the shelters that were on the long trail.
And Tara, you did this supported, so there were other folks with you. You weren't carrying a pack, which is in part what allowed you to do this in 3 days, which is still so insanely incredible. Who did you bring with you? Who was part of your team, your
Oh my
human
gosh,
pack?
we had a posse, a large, a large posse of people. Like some people were there to like work, and then there's like people like tailgating essentially the effort. That's what I heard because I didn't see a lot of it, like the crewing side. But my crew chief Rascal, she helped me on the Appalachian Trail, and so she was there, and she was able to like employ a lot of other people like out of the Vermont community. Some of those being Arlie Hiskey and Scott Benneroff, and then Chewy came around, which was awesome. Chewy is such a good pacer. And then like our mutual friend Road Soda and Matador, just like people from the trails we've done. Yeah, so I had a lot of people. There was like moments where, the there was a moment where I had like one pacer, but that was like very rare. I typically had on average, about three pacers with me. So they carried my food and water. And so I didn't have to carry anything but my tracker and sometimes my phone if I wanted music. But yeah, I was out there with so many people and it was so much fun. It was like a little trail family.
Wow. Fun might not be the word that I would use, but I'm glad you had the company. And it does sound like such an adventure. And I'm glad you brought up water because before the show, Tori, you and I were talking about how you volunteered to do rescues on the portion of the Long Trail near your home in Waterbury. And water's been a big issue on the trail this summer because of the lack of rain.
Yeah, it's definitely been a dry summer. I ran into a couple of stretches where I couldn't fill up on water, or I guess I couldn't take water from anyone else or like ask for any help from anyone on the trail as part of the unsupported attempt. So there were a couple of stretches where I got into some dicey situations with water supply, where sources that I was expecting to be flowing, that are normally flowing, were not. So it was definitely a different challenge than I was expecting from Vermont.
Oh, let's go back to the phones. We have other folks calling in with their stories of the Long Trail. Steve is in Fairfax. Steve, go ahead.
Hi, everybody, and congratulations on completing the LT. I'm Steve from Fairfax, and I hiked the LT in 2002 as a way to start a scholarship fund for others in Vermont with traumatic brain injury. My LT took me 5 weeks, which is the same amount of time I spent in an uninduced coma after my mountaineering accident in 1998. But the best part about doing the LT was it was far over my head, no pun intended. But the part I enjoyed was an everyday sort of meditation. I learned from the LT hikers that you're not going to be a happy camper every day. So every day I would make myself a cup of Greek coffee, and it takes time to make it and enjoy it. And during that time, I would psych myself up for the next day's hiking. Thanks, everybody, and I'm glad you did the LT.
Steve, thank you so much for sharing and congratulations on that accomplishment. That is incredible. So it sounds like for Steve, the Long Trail provided this sense of accomplishment, but also of peace. And it's a beautiful part of Vermont, much of it along the spine of the Green Mountains. Tara, you have done both the Long Trail and the Appalachian Trail. How does the Long Trail compare to what's unique about it compared to the Appalachian Trail?
Oh man, it's so rugged and it's beautiful there's areas like Mount Mansfield and Camel's Hump I was able to train on before I actually got on the long trail to set this record. And I was just like, so, I was just so in love with those areas. And I wanted to keep doing them over and over. So by the time I was on the record attempt, I was just stoked to be up there. Mount Mansfield, I got up and it was nighttime, but Camel's Hump, it was like, I think it was like early morning, or not early morning, probably late morning, with my friend Andy Johnstone. And it was just like, I mean, the Appalachian Trail is also gorgeous. I would say they're just very similar, especially up in the Northeast. It's rugged, but it's just so worth it.
Well, we have to pause here for a short break. When we come back, we will hear more stories of these two incredible athletes who broke speed records on the long trail this year. We also want to hear your stories of the long trail. Will in Craftsbury wrote in and said that he's done it twice, once in 2001 and again in 2006 with a teen group from Farm and Wilderness in Plymouth. He was a Green Mountain Club caretaker for 2 seasons and has also hiked the Appalachian Trail northbound. He said he cried and kissed the sign at the Vermont border, and his favorite place on the long trail is Little Rock Pond. All right, you can call in at 800-639-2211. More Vermont Edition in just a moment. Welcome back to Vermont Edition. I'm Michaela Lafrac. Our guests today are two athletes who set speed records this summer on the Long Trail, the 273-mile trail that runs the length of Vermont. Tori Constantine set the record for fastest unsupported trek by a female hiker at 5 days, 19 hours, and 29 minutes. And Dower of Colorado set a new supported speed record for both men and women at 3 days, 18 hours, and 29 minutes. Let's talk a little bit here about training. Tori, I know you're a nurse. When did you figure out when to train? Like when were you doing this? How do you do it?
On my days off. No, I guess the nice thing about being a nurse is I work 3 12-hour shifts a week, so I was able to get in a lot of training on the days I wasn't working. I mean, I live right near the Long Trail, so I was lucky to have it kind of in my backyard and just got out on Camel's Hump and Mansfield a lot. I go over to the Whites a fair amount too in New Hampshire, so.
Do you ever work out in a gym, or is it all outside on trails?
I work out in the gym sometimes, yeah. I lift like once or twice a week, but I definitely prefer to be outside when I can.
Yeah. And Tara, what about you?
Yeah, I like training is just how I guess I make a living. I
Yeah.
run for like 4 I'm sponsored by 4 brands, and I'm very thankful that I'm able to do this every day. And I went on my speed workout today, and so like every day I just have a prescribed workout. So it could be like a more mountainous day where I get out into the San Juans, or a speed workout like today, or just like a sustained effort. Specifically for the long trail, like I was training for Western States, which 100, which is very fast. But like for the long trail, I wanted to get out there on trail and have very, very long days. So I was able to get out there with some friends, Maya and Scott and Andy, and we just did like long training runs together and just time on feet. I did a fast pack with Scott, and I had a pack on, and just was able to like get on trail a lot and like practice those like technical areas like Whiteface and Madonna and Mansfield and Camel's Hump a lot.
Let's go back to the phones. We have Joplin, which I think is a trail name, calling in from Shelburne. Joplin, what are your thoughts listening to this long trail conversation?
Hi. Well, I hiked the long trail with my daughter, and we did it in 20 days. And the whole time I kept thinking, there's so many nice spots along here that I would love to just slow down. And we'd stop to see a shelter, and we'd say, oh, we should spend the night here, but we've only done 10 miles. We should keep going. So ever since then, well, I did it in the winter a few years ago. So you don't want to stop too much in the wintertime. But I've always thought I wanted to set the record for the longest through hike. So my goal is to take 100 days, maybe do 2 or 3 miles a day, and just be super leisurely and just enjoy every spot and stop at all the shelters. I don't know if I'll get around to that, but anyway, I love it. I'm so impressed that these folks can do it so fast, but I'm hoping I can do it really slow sometime.
I love that. Joplin, if you ever do that, you got to call us and let us know how it was. Tara, do you think you could, what do you think of that goal of our callers? Would that drive you crazy?
Oh, I mean, I love going slow, but I also really like going fast. So like it's just like a different for me, it's just like a different goal.
Mm-hmm.
So I've done through hikes where I've gone really, really slow and I've enjoyed that with that, goal and that intention, but have also really gotten a lot from going fast. But that is a common sentiment when people hear about, a speed record like this. They talk about like how enjoyable it is to go slow, and I totally agree.
Yeah.
It's so nice to go slow.
Yeah. Two different types of journeys. Let's go to Johan in Hyde Park. Go ahead.
Oh, hi. Yep. I'm actually in Philadelphia,
Oh, excuse
but
me.
I mentioned we have. No, because I said we have a place in Hyde Park, Wolcott, but I'm in Philly now. Not that
Okay.
it matters that much. But I have, I have I guess limited experience on the long trail. I went from Stratton to Bromley a long time ago, and last year I hiked with my niece Belvedere to Hazen's Notch, and this summer I've been up on Mansfield a number of times and Whiteface. But my question for Tara and then Tori is this: if you would consider doing the trail northbound instead of southbound, and if they think how much slower they think it would be doing it northbound. I know that the old FKT site used to list both directions, but it's been sort of simplified, and I also understand that that's how people like it. But I do think that it would be slower heading north, and I'd like to get their thoughts on that.
Great question. Thank you. Tori, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I've not for speed, but I have hiked the Long Trail northbound. That was my first through hike actually in 2020, and that direction I think can be a lot harder. I think that's why a lot of people who have done FKTs have gone southbound. I guess there's advantages and disadvantages to either direction, but going northbound, you start with some of the easier terrain and kind of end in the harder, more rugged northern terrain. So you're when you're starting to get tired and you've kind of hit that sleep deprivation and fatigue, then you're getting into the hardest stuff at the end. So I think that would be really challenging.
Yeah, mentally as well as physically. And you said FKT a couple of times there. That's fastest known time for folks who aren't familiar with the abbreviation. Tara, what do you think about northbound versus southbound on the trail?
I would be interested to see to go out there and try it northbound and see what the difference is, but I wonder if it would even out, because you would, like Tori said, you have easier terrain going northbound in the beginning, and so you probably would be able to get quite far ahead, but then as you're getting more north, it gets more technical. But I wonder, with my the way I'm thinking about it, since it's more technical, it's probably more engaging. And so when you hit that sleep deprivation, maybe it would be dangerous, but also maybe it would be so engaging that the sleep deprivation, you wouldn't be walking. There was times where I was just falling asleep walking, and it was very easy flat terrain, and I wonder if it was more engaging, a technical, going down Whiteface, if it would just keep you more awake. So it's interesting. I wonder what that would be like.
Well, thanks, Johan, for asking the question. We just got an email from Lorelei who says that their friend Blythe hiked the long trail together with them this July before going off to college. We collected quite a bit of lore on the trip, but I'd say our favorite section was Puffer Shelter through to the Notch. That section was particularly fun as we grew up right near Mansfield, so passing through the whole area in a day brought a real sense of the scale. Brought a real scene of the scale of the state. It was amazing to have lookouts and see how far we traveled in just a few days. When you both finished, what did you do? Tori, what happened when you finished?
I ate a piece of pizza. That's,
Did you like collapse? Did you just walk straight to the pizza place?
No, I laid down in front of the sign once I realized that I was there. I finished at, I think it was around 9:30 at night, so it was dark. It was raining. It was the first rain I'd had while I was out there. Yeah, my roommates were there and my friend Friday to meet me at the end, and they brought me a pizza. So I ate some pizza and I laid down. I started taking off my shoes, and they were like, no, we still have to hike out.
Oh gosh.
So it's about 3.5 miles down to the road from the sign. And once I'd kind of sat for long enough, I gathered myself to do that last little push to the car.
Yeah, those are some good friends to bring you a pizza for the end. And Tara, what do you remember from finishing?
Yeah, I ran pretty quickly for last 2.5 miles. The 14 miles before that, or the last 14 miles, were pretty grueling. I was so exhausted, and I was seeing a lot of things, and I was just like, things got really weird. But with 2.5 miles left, I was able to kind of reel it in. Come on, Tara, let's get it together. You're almost there. So I ran that last bit pretty quickly with Scott and Rascal and Maya, and we just ran pretty quickly to the sign, and all my friends were there. Chewy was there. I touched the sign and I just collapsed because I was so looking forward to that moment. It's like you have this clock going the entire time. You have this timer going the entire time. And so whenever I lay down for a dirt nap, I'm thinking okay, you're just the seconds are going. And so you always have that in the back of your head. And so when I touch that sign, it's over and I can do whatever I want. And all I wanted to do was sleep in that very moment. And we were going around in a circle and we were talking about our favorite moments, or who was there, because it was in the middle of the night. And I just got a sleeping pad and a sleeping bag and just fell asleep right there at the sign.
You're like, I can't debrief right now. I have to go to sleep.
Yeah, I was ready to take a nap.
Tori, you were there for that moment. What do you remember?
I do remember Rascal kind of debriefing, telling you everyone that was there. But you were definitely falling asleep, understandably. And yeah, we all were just we hiked in, a bunch of us from the Massachusetts side to the sign to meet Tara there and be there when she finished. So it was really fun. We were all just waiting to see the headlamp coming.
Yeah. Oh, that must have been so exciting to see that happen. Yeah. Well, let's take another call here. We have Mackenzie calling in from Putney. Go ahead.
Hey there. My trail name is Spirit. How's it going, Chewy, Tara? Y'all are amazing. And yeah, I just wanted to call in to share. I hiked the AT in 21, same year as Chewy, and then hiked the long trail the following year. And I just wanted to talk about the community on both trails and how spectacular humans that spend time around the Appalachian Trail and the Long Trail are. I was really lucky to have incredible support on and off trail on the AT in 21. And on the Long Trail in 22, I basically hiked by myself the whole time. I saw very few other people out there. There were no bubbles around me. But I had just moved to Vermont that year, and I found my community off trail. And the Vermonters that I encountered when doing resupplies and towns were just so incredibly supportive and loving and kind and welcoming to me as a new person to the state. So, yeah, just wanted to shout out these two incredible ladies and comment on restore one's faith in humanity.
Oh. Mackenzie, thank you so much for calling in. What a kind call. We also just got a great email from George, who's a senior at Randolph Union High School, who is doing his senior project on section backpacking the Long Trail. And he writes that he's traversed 190 miles of Vermont's beautiful forests, experiencing a range of up and downs, learning from my friends, the vast community the Long Trail has to offer, and most notably, learning about myself. My friend and I quickly found that this trail was more than just a hiking path, but a community in the woods with so much compassion. We learned that even a day on the trail can create the impactful feeling of community, leading me to this opportunity to spread so much love for this trail across Vermont. And I strongly encourage anyone to step out in the woods, even for a day or night, because so much learning can come out of just a walk in the woods. We got an email for you, Tara, from Shauna or Shana in Putney, who wants to know a little bit more about your pacing. She said, your pace doesn't seem humanly possible. How did you figure out how fast you could go?
Oh, yeah, I just kind of like went off feeling, I guess, for the first bit. Um, yeah, I don't know. I kind of just go at a pace and like oftentimes Rascal's pacing me and like I'm having moments, emotional moments. Like it's totally okay to cry during these things. If
Yeah.
anyone says otherwise, like they obviously haven't gone hard enough, but like crying is fine. And so I'll be like bearing my soul to Rascal. I'm like, I'm going so slow and I can't do this. And like I'm just having so much trouble. And she's like, Terry, you're literally like moving so fast. It's fine. Like it's a roller coaster for sure. And so some moments I'm feeling great and I'll move really fast. And then other moments I'm just having, a moment and, I need to take my time. So it's really like whatever my body's willing to give me in the moment, I'm going to just take it.
We have Xenia calling in from Barrytown. Xenia, how are you doing? What are your thoughts?
Hi. Well, I hiked on the Long Trail many times. I'm in my 70s now, but most of it was in the 1950s and the 1960s. I grew up in Shaftesbury, which is in Bennington County and not far from the Long Trail. The Long Trail and the AT were the same for the southern part of the state. And I hiked, many times I hiked the section near where I live, the Glastonbury section, at that time the southernmost part. And it goes over Glastonbury Mountain and through, there really isn't a town of Glastonbury, it's still unincorporated, and so it's a ghost town. And it's very, very wild. And at that time, you could climb up a fire tower on Glastonbury Mountain that you could see like everywhere, and none of it human built, all complete white wilderness. And the wilderness is what attracted me most. Most of my, I did some sections later when I was no longer living with my parents in Shaftesbury.
Xenia, we have to wrap up in just a second, and I would love to ask our guests here about that section of the trail that you're describing, that southernmost point, which is such a significant part of it. Tori, I know you've hiked many parts of the Long Trail. Do you recognize this section that Xenia is bringing up?
Yeah, the Glastonbury section's kind of your last big section before coming into Route 9, and then crossing over Route 9. That's your last big road crossing. You're coming into the end. What I remember from that section was the descent down into Route 9, so coming down from Glastonbury. It was very painful. My feet were hurting, screaming every step. So that was definitely a rough push for me.
Yeah, when you're doing it for speed, it might feel a little different than how Xenia is remembering it from her time as a young person in the 50s and 60s. Thank you so much for calling in and highlighting that section of the trail, though, for us, Xenia. All right, we got to wrap up, but I do want to ask you each for a piece of advice for somebody who might not be trying to do the trail as quickly as either of you, but maybe is trying to gear up to do a through hike of the long trail and is feeling like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to pull this off, either mentally or physically. Tara, is there a piece of advice or encouragement that you would offer to somebody in that situation?
Yeah, I actually tried a through hike in 2017 and had a panic attack and had to get off the trail, off the Appalachian Trail. And my biggest advice that I tell everyone going for a through hike or, endurance effort of sorts, like set up your expectations properly. Like it might not be this like grand adventure you're expecting. And that's okay. Like it's, the whole thing about the journey and the adventure. I mean, it's just all of the emotions. It's everything. It's the entire experience. It's not like, oh, this is so great and I'm having such a great time and I'm on cloud nine. No, it's going to be hard. It's a roller coaster, and just like embracing that and expecting that. I think that's my biggest piece of advice.
And like you, they just might see a baby clown while
Yeah,
hallucinating and crying in the woods.
15 feet tall. It's terrifying.
Tori, what about you? Any words of advice or encouragement for future hikers?
Yeah, my words of advice are similar, just to take it all in, like the good and the bad. Yeah, I mean, one thing I've always loved doing on through hikes with my friends that I've hiked with is roses and thorns, and you remember like all the really great memories from trail just as much as you remember some of the like harder days, and those become just as special experiences as well.
Tori, Constantine set the record for fastest unsupported trek on the long trail at 5 days, 19 hours, and 29 minutes, a record for female hikers. Tori, thank you so much for joining us, and congrats.
Thank you.
And Tara Dower of Colorado set us a new supported speed record for men and women at 3 days, 18 hours, and 29 minutes. Tara, we didn't have time to talk about how you used your run to raise funds for the Green Mountain Club, but we really appreciate the support of that local club that's trying to maintain the long trail. And thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, just support your local trails.
Yeah. All right, Tori and Tara, thank you for joining us. We're going to take a short break. Coming up, we are going to hear about a major update to the Bear Brook murder case from New Hampshire. Stay with us. Welcome back to Vermont Edition. I'm Michaela Lafrac. 40 years ago, in 1985, two kids discovered a barrel in the woods near Bear Brook State Park in New Hampshire. Inside were human remains. A second barrel found nearby increased the body count. Together, the two barrels held the remains of a woman and 3 children. This case was the subject of a hit podcast that premiered about 6 years ago called Bear Brook from New Hampshire Public Radio.
What grandmother let this happen, or what neighbor, or what bus driver, or, where were all of you?
This is a guy who was able to pick his targets and get what he wanted. And that says that is someone of terrifying intelligence.
I mean, this is the biggest step forward for solving crime since the discovery of DNA itself.
In the show, we learned the identities of 3 of the 4 Bear Brook victims, but one remained unknown. That is, until this year. We're joined now by Jason Moon, the podcast host and a senior producer with NHPR's investigations team. It's called Document. Jason, welcome to Vermont Edition.
Thanks so much for having me.
So for those who might not be familiar, could you help me give our listeners a bit of a deeper overview of the Bear Brook case? It started, as I said, with the discovery of these 2 individuals in Bear Brook State Park in 1985. How did you decide to start following this case?
Yeah, it's a lot to summarize because it's so much happened over so many years, and it took us 7 or 8 podcast episodes to explain it all. But as you said, basically you had 4 unidentified murder victims found in the woods near Bear Brook State Park. And for many, many years, that was the whole story. We just didn't know who these people were, who had killed them, how they had ended up in the woods there. That finally started to change somewhere around 2015, thanks to an investigative technique called genetic genealogy. This is a type of DNA testing that folks might be familiar with from websites like Ancestry.com or 23andMe, where you can send in a DNA sample and discover long lost relatives you didn't know you had, or a third cousin you've never met before. And it occurred to investigators that those types of DNA tests, that technique, could also be used to identify unidentified human remains. And that technique is what ultimately led to the identification of 3 of the 4 victims, as you mentioned, Marlise Honeychurch, Sarah Vaughn, and Sarah McWaters, and Marie Vaughn, and also identified the man who likely killed them, a serial killer named Terry Rasmussen. And then it took another 6 years of investigative work and more genetic genealogy to finally get us to where we are as of just several days ago, which is now that we have the last victim's identity, a young girl, just 3 years old when she was killed. Her name was Rhea Rasmussen, and she was the biological daughter of Terry Rasmussen, the man that police believe was responsible for the murders. So it took a lot of twists and turns to get us here, but a lot of the work, and one of the things that really interested me about the story in the first place was that a lot of that work was done by volunteers, by folks outside of law enforcement who happened to be really good genealogists. For a long time, this was genealogy. It was a hobby. It was something that people did in their spare time. And then the DNA tests kind of entered the scene with genetic genealogy. And then people got really good at that. And at first, they were doing it to help people identify their biological parents if, say, they had been adopted and they wanted to know who their parents were. And so they developed the expertise doing those kinds of searches. And then they started to help law enforcement with these types of cases. And they really revolutionized the way that these types of cases are now investigated. Genetic genealogy is sort of, it really has changed the way that murders are investigated now across the country. And it all came from a kind of subculture, a group of very enthusiastic, talented hobbyists who entered the scene.
Yeah. And in this podcast, you talk with many, many people who were involved in this case, from family members to law enforcement to these citizen investigators that you're describing for us now. Some of them came from an organization called the DNA Doe Project, which I never heard of until listening to your podcast, Jason, and found their work fascinating. Can you tell us a bit more about them?
Yeah, so they are one of the major groups that do this kind of work now, and they grew out of that kind of volunteer space of genetic genealogy and started to kind of formalize this process. And so they set up it's a nonprofit, and they partner with law enforcement agencies across the country on a pro bono basis to attempt to identify remains that the police cannot identify. And so they will take a case and they need a DNA sample from remains, but they'll take that DNA sample and then they'll upload it to, there's a couple of different genetic genealogy DNA databases that they can use for this type of work. And they, I think on their website, they list some, I think it's in the hundreds of identifications that they say they have made across the country at this point. So it just sort of underscores the revolutionary nature of this technique and how powerful it can be. But at the end of the day, it's all the work is being done by these volunteer researchers who are, for the most part, sitting at home doing this work all across the country. We had folks who worked on the Bear Brook case who recently came to New Hampshire for the press conference announcing the identification of Rhea. And, one of the DNA Doe Project volunteers flew in from London, where he had been working on this case for a couple years. So it's an interesting artifact of our time, and the way that you can crowdsource investigations, and the way that DNA technology has sort of supercharged genealogy that has got us to this point.
One of the most powerful segments of the update that was recently published to this Bear Brook case, for me, while I was listening, Jason, was hearing you and some of your other guests, I believe from the DNA Doe Project, ruminate on why it's important to name these victims. And I was really curious to hear more from you about that, Jason, because you've been working on this case for a decade now, and in a way, you just have this really, I can imagine, a very unique, special relationship with these people, these victims who you never actually met. What place do they hold in your life?
Yeah, it is. It's a strange type of relationship, if you can even call it that, right? Because these are people obviously I've never met, that I don't really know anything about, except that they were murdered, and now we know their name. And I was wondering, it had been so many years and so much effort by these volunteer investigators and law enforcement, to get us to this point. And, for so many listeners who have been so invested in it as well, all for this search for an answer to the basic question of, like, who were these people? What were their names? That's what we were after this whole time, for the 10 years at least that I've been working on this story. Who were they? And then, that moment comes when we find out. And what does that mean exactly? Now we know their names, and so now what? And I was trying to wrestle with what's the answer to that? And is it worth it that we would spend all this time and effort to learn a name that we can't? It's not like we can. It's not as though we're giving it back to those people and they can say thank you, or they can react, or accept that name.
Yeah.
But what Matthew Waterfield from the DNA Doe Project said to me really stuck with me, that names carry a lot with them, and one of the things they carry with them is a sense of dignity and a sense of personhood, and it's almost this like spiritual quality that a person is you can almost feel like a person's only a person when they have a name, or at least more so. And I think that's ultimately what this was all about. People who wanted to give dignity back to this woman and 3 children who were horribly murdered, and give them back a bit of their personhood, that was taken from them, along with their lives. And so it's a sobering, sad end. Obviously, there's no happy ending in a story like this, but at least there was, something was returned to them in the end.
And that is how it feels for the listener too. Like you're part of this very important returning of a piece of somebody's humanity. And Jason, I know you and your team at Document at NHPR worked very hard on this series, and have more work ahead. Is there a new podcast that you're a part of right now?
We've got a couple series in the works. I can't say too much, except that we'll have one out before the end of this year.
All right. Well, we'll be sure to keep an ear open for that. Jason Moon is the host of the podcast Bear Brook and a senior reporter and producer with NHPR's Document team. Jason, thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right, that is all the time that we have for today's show. As always, you can weigh in on Vermont Edition, pitch us your own ideas for shows, or just say hi by emailing vermontedition@vermontpublic.org. Our show today was directed by Aaliyah Papes. John Ahrens is our managing producer. Andrea Lorian and Daniela Fierro are our producers. Our call screener today was Rick Barrett, and our theme music is by Myra Flynn. I'm Michaela Lafrac. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll catch up again soon.